How do you get better at chess? That's a question I've heard many times. There's a lot of good answers. Practice more. Practice your openings. Study your openings. Study your end games. Look at master games. Look at master games specifically of the openings that you play. If you play Ruy Lopez, look at master games of Ruy Lopez to see how they handled certain aspects of the position. You won't understand all of it, but if you understand a little bit, it helps. All of these things are terrific. Visualization is the key in this video. With visualization, you can take your abilities and you're adding to them because you get to see what happens when I move this piece to this square. And is that what I need to do? Are there things that are happening that I need to look out for? There's a myriad of options. You have to be able to play defense and offense. And visualization helps you play better defense because you get to use my dad's rule. What's he trying to do to me? And when you ask that rule and you look at it, the visualization will give you, well, this guy's trying to make this move here. He's going to try and check me, fork me, win a piece from me, checkmate me, whatever. Visualization is just ever present. You do it all the time. Usually you're doing it 1 or 2 or 3 piece movements at a time. But in these videos, you're going to see that it happens 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and beyond. Not every time, every once in a while. Most of the time, it tends to be in the 5 to 7 range for what you would call good player type positions, not the garbage positions that they start off with. Those are basic. But, you know, the kids have to be able to see this as well. So this works for anyone, for kids, for adults, doesn't matter. There's nobody who doesn't benefit from visualization or improving the visualization. So hopefully you guys are ready to kick some butt, because when you see this, you're gonna feel super powered because of what I've done and what I have showed is possible when you're focusing on improving your visualization in chess. So sit down and get ready to rock. I'll see you later. Welcome, future masters. Please like this video. It's going to be a good one. Okay, the reason we're here is for you guys to improve your visualization. And you're probably thinking, well, my visualization is pretty good. What are you talking about? I'm talking about you need to visualize and verbalize what you see. So right here, white to move and win. The winning move, rook to c8 check. It's a back rank checkmate. He can play rook d8, and then after rook takes rook, it's checkmate. It's simple. That's a one really, well, I guess technically this would be a 3 mover. 1, 2, and then 3. Again, this is a whoops checkmate. I'm going to go to the back rank. He's going to play bishop to c1 and knight to e1. Hang on a second. Okay, that was a random phone call. Anyway, so you want to be able to anticipate as many responses to your move as possible. And these are very simple in the beginning. It's going to get harder as it goes. Now you see this queen is blocking the king's flight square on h2. So all we have to see is what's the best move. Rook takes rook check, looks good, and that's a checkmate because he's got no flight squares. So basically, if you cannot describe what's physically happening in detail, you're not really doing the right thing. We don't want to say, well, I'm just going to move my rook and, you know, do something like check. We're going to go rook to c8 check directly. He has only one piece that can stop it, and that's rook to d8. We're going to take that rook, and that's checkmate. The description tells you that it's solid gold. So once again, he has an incorrectly defended back rank. He has two pieces defending different squares. They have no commonality or intersection. So we hit queen c1, check. When we take the rook with check, take the queen with mate. Now, he could just use one or the other, but I want to prepare for every possibility within reason as best as possible. No one is perfect. So here's an easy checkmate. It's queen takes bishop check, and he has no flight squares. That is checkmate. It's that simple. Okay, for those of you who are familiar with my videos, this is the bump and score. For those of you who don't know what a bump and score is, we're going to take this pawn on f7 with our queen because it's got two attackers and one defender, his king. And we're going to force his king to go back to the corner. That's the bump. And the score is we're going to checkmate him with a 2 versus 1 on the back rank. We'll sacrifice our queen to checkmate this guy. That's the bump. This is the score. Now, my regular guys can tell you, bump and score, man, they're awesome. I'm sure of it. This is another bump and score. Bump, score. In my videos, I'm the only guy, well, I am the guy who invented the phrase, the bump and score. No one teaches that but me. This is another bump and score, but now with a rook, with a knight. So now, the score is knight, g6, queen takes knight, queen takes queen, goodbye Charlie. Score usually tends to be checkmate and bump and score, but it's not always the case. The score means you're winning. Now, this is the key thing where the visualization is, you see that this pawn creates a 7 by 7 square. If the king is in this square, he can stop this pawn. Problem is, the first square the pawn moves to is not the 6, doesn't make a 6 by 6. We get the two square pawn push, and it turns from a 7 into a 5. And you'll notice that this 5 by 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, from G5 over here to C5, he's not in that square, and he can never get in that square. So we win right here. We know it's won. It's already over. I play G5, it's game over. There's nothing he can do. All right. Now, you should see, hopefully, relatively quickly, that his king and his a7 rook are on the same line, and that bishop to c5 check is a fork. It's a bishop fork of rook and king. So he could take queen takes bishop, and I would just take queen takes queen. The fork is still the same. I'm replacing the bishop with the queen if necessary. He's toast. If he plays bishop to e3 on the interposition here, if he plays bishop to e3, bishop takes bishop check, and I'm still going to take that rook. So this is satisfactory. We're winning. That's how you do it. Okay, visualization. It looks like every time you see a king hidden behind a wall of pawns, you should always look for a back rank checkmate. You never know. Here we have that possibility again. He's got multiple pieces or two pieces that defend different squares. They don't defend a single common square, therefore they don't defend together. So he's got a rook, an e1, a knight guarding a1 or c1. Okay, but b1 is open, sure is. Queen to b1 check. I take his knight when he goes back, and I take his rook when he goes back, and it's checkmate. Goodbye, Charlie. Now later on, when we get to harder problems, the visualization will take the form of literally combinational moves. So here, what are we doing? Good question. I see. Our bishop is guarding our knight, so we can check him with our queen, and don't worry, he cannot play king takes knight. Therefore, queen h5 is the move. It's an unblockable diagonal. Okay, that means he only has actually nothing. It's checkmate because the pawn guards this square. The queen would guard e2. The bishop guards f4 and g3. The queen guards g4. So queen h5 is checkmate. This is what my visualization tells me. And it doesn't matter how fast you do it. You just need to be accurate. Okay, so here the visualization is if we played rook to e2 check, he'll play knight takes rook, so that's no good, at least right now. Look for a better move. How about knight to d1 check? Notice the bishop guards f1 and e2. The knight on d1 would guard e3 and f2. He'd only have king g1. And one of my rules is when you're checking and attacking a king, pursuing him, if he has only one move, you're winning. So king g1, we could hit him with a rook check. Rook check. He could go. The only move he has is knight f1, and then we have rook takes, knight is checkmate. Well, son of a gun, visualization says it is. Now, in real tournaments, you need to run this 2 or 3 times. Be very accurate. In a goof-off game, it doesn't really matter. But when you're playing in tournaments like I played tournaments, you got to be super careful. Because you're going to have half an hour to 3 hours in between rounds. So, you know, win your game and cash it in. But if you do something stupid and lose it because you didn't take care of your business, you're going to be sitting there for 30 minutes to 3 hours feeling like an idiot. It's different when you lose a game in a tournament. It's different when a guy plays great and beats you. You get over that really. You get over that pretty quickly. If you play stupid and screw yourself, that doesn't go away for quite some time. So now, what are we going to do? That's a good question. Well, we have a lot of nothing moves. Knight e5, knight g5, queen g7, no good. Queen g8. We have knight f5 check or knight g8. Those command attention, especially knight to g8, unattacked. Knight to g8. I don't know, man. That's a good question. Now, my dad's rule. What's he trying to do to me? This is it right here. It looks ugly. Okay? This is winning a piece at the very least, and possibly more than that. So I don't need to really go into the details. It's so bad, I don't have to calculate this. I just need to be aware of it. I don't want this. It's like sticking your hand in a fire. You know it's going to hurt. You don't know how bad it's going to be if you stick it in there, but you just, why even waste the time calculating? Okay, so what do we have? Queen, unfortunately, I'm looking at stuff like queen takes g6, but that's no good. He's got triple defense. Well, really two attackers, 2 defenders plus the king. Knight to h4 is not good. Knight to g5 doesn't do anything. Man, this is really ugly. Trying to figure out what is our advantage. We got to check this guy, I think, just to stop. So let's just check him and see what happens. This is what is known as the brute force technique. Brute force technique is lay a check on this guy and force him to go somewhere. If he goes king h7, this one looks easier, so let's look at the easy one first. King h7, knight takes, that wins his queen. So knight g8, king h7 loses because this bishop would be pinned by the queen. Knight takes f6, check, game over. So knight g8, he's forced to play only one move. You know my rule, we're winning. King to h5. So now let's hit this guy. Oh, nice. We have knight takes f6 check. Knight takes f6, bishop takes knight, and then queen to h5. I'm sorry, queen to h7 looks like checkmate. So knight g8 check, king h5. Knight checks, bishop takes knight, queen to h7, check. He's got no, this bishop is now on f6. This is where the visualization comes in I was telling you about. He's got, this knight cannot go here. The king is on h5. He cannot, black cannot interpose any pieces. So it's the sacrifice and the jumbling of his pieces which causes them to interfere or lose control of the squares that they need to control. Well, I told you he can't go there. I'll take a queen. That was visualization at its finest. Okay, look at this beautiful move. We had this knight check move. Knight to e7 check. It's check. It's not checkmate. What it does, well, if he doesn't take it, it's checkmate. He can play queen takes, but what that does is that deflects the defender of g3 to e7. So we play rook to g3 check. Now this is checkmate after queen to g5. Rook takes g5. That's checkmate. So knight check is deflecting the queen from defending the other mate threat. There's two mate threats. There's a rook to g3 checkmate threat and a knight to e7 checkmate. This is checkmate now, once we capture the queen. So that was a kind of an advanced visualization. This one's fairly simple. That's a whoops mate. Whoops mate is when you make a move, like one move that either checkmates or mates in the next couple of moves directly without any real brain power being. Queen takes free rook, checkmate is what my father would say. Okay, here you see our queen, knight, and rook, and the white rook all in the same line. If I play knight takes bishop check, I've created a new line for my queen to hit that rook. So he can take it with either the queen or knight, and I'll just take the queen takes free rook. It looks like a winner to me. Queen takes free rook is what my father would say. And I go, queen runs away to f6. So that when he plays bishop to b2, skewering my g7 pawn, I'll just play queen to g6. Goodbye. Now look at this beautiful discovered attack we have. Oh man, it's nasty. This is a nasty one. We move this bishop, it's check, right? We can move to here, it's double check. We can move to here, it's double check. Now, I don't do this normally. I'm just showing this for this specific position. So, this is a discovered check. We get to move this bishop to anywhere we want legally, and it's check. So, the thing is here is that we have this pawn on h5, so we're going to be able to replace this queen. So we play bishop takes knight. He could play king takes bishop. We hit him with queen to g4 check. The only move he has, once again, he's got one move. We're winning. King to e3, and then we can close the door with queen to f4. That is checkmate, sir. And this is the visualization. This move is no longer, there's no mystery behind bishop takes knight check. It's just crushing. If he doesn't take me, I'm going to checkmate him queen to g2. If he takes me, I'm going to checkmate him by queen g4, queen f4. It's basic stuff because of practice and exercise. This is the checkmate that I visualized. This is how you get to be good. You always wanted to know, how do I get to be good? This is how you get to be good. Visualization is just speaks for itself. So now we have bishop takes free bishop on d4. He has a pin, and he's going to play, he's got a pin on my knight. I can't move my knight because he takes my rook, right? That's okay. I'll take this free bishop. He's going to go bishop to c8 going, haha, I'll get the piece back. He'll play rook takes knight, and he gets his piece back. Well, yeah, yes and no. Bishop takes bishop. Bishop c8. You've got double attack. I can't do anything about it. I don't have to. I go bishop to here on e5. I'm going to skewer these two guys. And I don't care what you take my knight with. But when that bishop ends up on this b7 square, whether we trade rooks or not, I'm going to play bishop takes knight. You're still going to lose a piece. So I've already confirmed in my mind that this is the winning move, because this is the crusher, and this is the hidden move that he failed to understand. Now, my rook is under attack, so this is called removing the liability of my position. My rook will be gone, and I told you after he played bishop takes rook on b7, I'm going to take his knight. And brother, I mean what I say. Okay, hopefully you guys see instantly the easy win here. This is bishop to f7, skewering king and rook. This is so basic, I'm not going to insult you by going any further. You can't stop it. He's not in the square. Okay, we get another discovered attack. Now, the thing is, let's look at the stupidest move we could play. The stupidest move we could play is probably knight h8. Well, he would just go, haha, knight takes free bishop. Well, it's not free, but it eliminates the check. Okay, so that's true. Knight h8 is terrible. Knight takes bishop is the right move. But there's a special case here. Knight can take on d6 and this double check. And the only answer to double check is king moves. But if you look at the king, the queen guards d8, the bishop and knight guard f7. This is actually checkmate. This is a whoops checkmate. Whoops, checkmate. But you see just how powerful that visualization can be. Here, the move, if you don't see it, you might want to pause the video, and I'll be right back in 3, 2, 1. We're back. The move is change of powers, another phrase that I invented. Rook takes knight. If he takes my rook with his king, knight to d7, check, goodbye queen. So, I don't care whether he takes this or not. Notice, you got to make sure he doesn't have any kind of reprisal attacks against my king. He does not. Crunch, change of powers, rook takes knight. Normally you hear that called an exchange sacrifice. It's a change of powers. That's really the best phrase, but I'm trained in science. So in science you give items specific terms regardless of what science. If it is could be the study of birds. Birds have wings and they have parts in their wings that are all the same. Now they're going to be shaped differently from species to species, but the parts of the beak is the beak regardless whether it's a skinny beak like a stork, or a waterfowl, or if it's going to be a curved beak like a predator, hawk, or eagle. Now this one is another whoops mate. Notice his king has no moves anywhere. So any check we lay on this guy is fatal if he cannot capture it. If we play queen to h6, it loses. If we just play h6, that's checkmate. Whoops. Okay. Visualization. First things first, this queen neutralizes our knight. Our knight can only be there as a restriction for the other king, which is actually good enough. Look, we can play rook to h4, and that's checkmate. Our knight being pinned can still defend the rook from being captured by a king. So rook to h4, this is checkmate. Oops. That's a whoops checkmate. Okay. This is a pretty basic one. He forked my queen and king with this queen. We have to take it. So in this case, you don't have to really worry about the visualization here. This is an obvious thing. If I do anything, well, I could play technically c6, but c6 this is a bad move, and I'll show you why. What we want to do is we want to kill this queen, and as soon as this queen is dead and we're not under check, we're going to play pawn takes free knight. So c6 does not help us because he'll go queen takes queen, pawn takes queen, knight runs away, and there's no more free knight for you. So I'm going to take this queen, but you're going to say, well, he's going to play bishop takes with check. Yeah, then I'm going to play c6 because I'm attacking this bishop and the knight. So I saw all this, but now we don't want to play a bishop here. We don't want him to remove the liability by taking the same level of a piece. You know, bishop takes bishop. If you want to take my pawn, bring it on. Pawn captures free knight is what my dad would say, and that is the value of having superior visualization. This is a whoops mate. If you don't see it, pause the video until you find it. It's not hard, but you need to find it. So 3, 2, 1, whoops mate. Okay, now notice, look where our queen is cutting this king off. He's only, if we check him, he's got one square, and that's king to h5. So I see this beautiful alignment of bishop and king. What about e5 discovered check? The only move, king to h5, which we discussed. Now, the question is, do we have, yes, we have queen to f7. The reason we have this move is that he could go back to h6, but we have the bishop now hits h7. So we're going to check him e5. King h5 is forced. Queen f7 check. Notice he can't go anywhere. These pawns are awesome. So he can either go to h6 after the bishop check. I'm sorry. After the queen check on f7, he can go to h6 or h4. h6 loses to the corner mating pattern of queen takes h7 protected by the bishop. If he goes to h4, it's the same thing. So at e5 is winning. So here's the sequence. In the tournament, you want to do this. You want to go, okay, look, I'm looking at this position. e5 check. King has one square. King to h5. Queen to f7 check. He can play either h6 or h4. In this case, either move gets the same response. Queen takes h7 checkmate. Game over. So in a tournament, I would do this 2 or 3 times just to make sure I got nothing better to do. I'm winning. Game over. Notice he has no squares. Checkmate. Okay, so now, once again, we have a beautiful shot at a discovered check with our knight. All right, I'm just going to show you this one more time here in case some of you guys are new. So knight to, the beauty of knight to d5 check is that it creates a block of this square. Maybe that's good, maybe it isn't. Probably is good, but, you know, man, we have another nasty move, rook to f2 check. See, sometimes, like a dog looking at a bone, I saw the discovered check, and then I'm like, well, you know what? Got plenty of time. There's no rush. I'm not out here trying to be, you know, a speed chess demon. So let's look at rook to f2 check. Look at, the knight blocks g8 and g6. A rook check would block f6. Dude, he's checkmated by, this is a whoops mate, but this is a trap. The trap is knight to d5 is the most natural move that you would play, but it's wrong. Rook to f2 check. Now, there's other guys who would think, oh no, rook to f2 check is the most natural. And guess what? They're right. It's the better move, but everybody's different. So it doesn't matter whether you see rook f2 first or knight to d5 first. As long as you see that rook to f2 is better than knight to d5, you're in good shape. So rook to f2 check looks like a checkmate to me. Rook, knight, and knight. No into position, game over. All right, this is a classic ladder mate. If you don't know what a ladder mate is, when you use the rooks like this, when it ends in a checkmate, the rooks or the rook and a queen. So here, we want to open this up. This would be checkmate. If we could replace our queen with this rook and get rid of this pawn, that would be checkmate after he interposes his queen, wouldn't it? The answer is yes. So this is what I call the what if technique. What if I could take this rook and this pawn and get rid of them and put my queen on this file? That's checkmate, right? It sure is. Well, rook takes pawn check, gets rid of my rook and the pawn. King takes, queen to a2 check. He has one move only. You know that means we're winning. Queen to a4. Queen takes a4 is checkmate. So let's count it off. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There you go. This is the legal mate or a variation of it. It's actually not the legal mate specifically proper, but this is a variation of the legal mate, which comes from the Philidor defense. So we played bishop takes. If you've ever studied Philidor defense, you'd know this. So bishop takes f7 is what we're going to play. He only has one move, king to e7. We're going to play knight to d5 check, which also guards the flight square of f6. And that's what the knight to d5 is, the mating move. So we get him. Bishop takes f7, king e7, knight d5 is checkmate. It's a 3-mover. 1, 2. This is, I'll just show it to you. This is checkmate. So this comes from the knowledge of the Philidor's defense. It's a trap. So now this guy, what is he threatening to do to me? He's threatening to take my queen. Now, I have other ideas possibly. I don't think they're any good actually. Queen takes rook, rook takes queen, king takes rook, and I'm a rook ahead. This is what is known as a simplification combination. Yeah, that's another phrase that I invented that no one uses because it's not great specifically by itself. It's, it's quasi-even. Sometimes it's better to have the queen, sometimes better to have the 2 rooks. But in this case, we have a queen versus a rook and a knight. So we're going to gain material, and we're going to end up, or queen versus rook and bishop actually. We're going to trade this because if I go, the only thing I have is queen to e1 or g1 check, and he goes king to knight to d1, and I don't have a follow-up move. The bishop is just awesome on this diagonal. So you know what? Simplification combination. I'm just going to clean your clock and end up with take this a rook ahead and cash the end game. Don't care. That wins. I'm a tournament chess winner. That move that I told you actually forces a victory. There's nothing he can do about it. So I don't care. So now we have a triple attack on his e7 bishop. He's got double defense, but he's got a knight also attacking my queen, which I don't like. So, but his knight attacking my queen would be exposed to rook takes queen. So the question is, do we play rook takes knight first and then take the bishop? Or do we play bishop takes bishop? If we play bishop e7, bishop takes bishop, he can play knight takes queen. We can play bishop takes queen. How do you like that? And then he can play knight takes knight. I take his knight. He takes my bishop. And we're all even. No, we're not. There's a flaw in that sequence. Here's the flaw. I play bishop takes e7. He takes knight takes queen. Bishop takes queen. If he plays knight takes knight, I hit him with rook takes rook check. He would play bishop takes rook, and then I would take his knight. So bishop takes bishop, knight takes queen, bishop takes queen. He really needs to play rook takes bishop, but if he plays knight takes knight, which I think is a mistake, rook takes rook, bishop takes rook, and then pawn takes knight, and he's losing. So bishop takes e7. He can play knight takes queen, bishop takes queen, rook on, I would say, A takes bishop, but it could be the other one. Rook takes bishop, and then knight takes knight, wins a piece for me. Looks to me like bishop takes bishop is the absolute winner. But in a tournament, you got to be really super careful. So one of the things I do in tournaments, and I just did it, is I pull out my fingers and I stick my hands under the table. And I make a finger. Bishop takes bishop. I took a bishop. I have one finger on one hand. The other hand is knight takes queen. He gets 1 for the queen. I get 1 for bishop takes queen. He should play rook takes bishop. There's a finger for that. So it's 2-2. And then I play bam, 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 bam. Rook takes d8. I get a finger for that. He has to take rook takes d8, and then I play knight takes knight on e5, and it's over. And I have 4, he's got 3. Let's watch and see what happens. 1-1. This is 2-2. Mistake. Now, in a tournament, I've already calculated this out in visualization. But hey, I'm right here. Doesn't cost me anything extra to look at it again. The point of rook takes rook check, and that in-between move check is a killer. Bishop takes, and now my rook is guarding my bishop. So that's why I take his knight, and he's got no reprisal to that move. So we're all even until I take his rook with check. He loses the piece, and that's why the machine resigned. But that was me and my visualization with my secret finger counting. You're like, I'm sure some people out there, but you're a master. Why do you count with your fingers? Because I have fingers and they can count on it, and I count good with them. You saw me win that game, didn't you? That's how I do. I've been doing that for 40 years. So now here's a secret that if you don't know this, I'm going to show you a really good idea. The king, by his moves, represents a 3x3. What happens is you can checkmate the king on the corner of his 3x3 matrix if the squares in the right position, the opposite direction, are occupied. So I use compass directions, and I'm the only guy that uses compass directions on a chessboard. So let's call this d5 square the northeast square from his king. This is north, this is south. The queen's on south. So if I play queen to the northeast square, which is d5, it's checkmate if he cannot go to the west square or the south square. The south square is blocked, but the west square is not, so it's not checkmate there. Unfortunately, it's not bad though. Queen checks. He has one move, king b4. I can play rook checks. He's got 2 squares, a4 and a3. If he goes to a4, queen to b5 is nasty. Oh, yeah, it's nasty. He'd go to a3, and then I'd hammer him with queen to a6 with a ladder mate, because the rook would occupy this ladder rung, and I'd have the other one, my queen. So queen checks here, king b4 forced, rook check. Now he could always put the queen in there, and that's just losing, so we don't calculate that. That's an obvious win. We're only counting the difficult stuff. So check, queen b4, king b4, rook b1, b goes king to a3. That is a little tougher. I don't have a great move for that. I mean, queen to b5 is very good. Oh, no, we just play rook to b3 check. Yeah, he's dead. This just wins outright. Me in visualization, kicking his butt. Now, if a rook to b3 check, if he takes it, I checkmate him. He resigns. Smart move. Okay. If you guys have been around, or those of you that have been around know that I'm going to give you my killer phrase. Here's the phrase that pays. I'm a master and then some on king and pawn endgames. But it's a king and rook endgame. Yeah, not for long, son. So, the first thing that jumps to my mind is that this rook is under attack by my king, and if I play rook to h3 check, king takes rook, and now look at the position. This king will never get to the a file, ever. This pawn my king holds back these two pawns, and I'm going to push this a pawn to glory. So this is the visualization. Rook h3 check, king takes h3, the only move. We're winning. Remember, he's got one move, we're winning. King takes rook. And now he can play, if he wants, king g3, but this is not a 7x7. The first move, it goes to 5x5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he can't get here. He can get to the F file, but he can't get to the E file. So watch, it's over. 5x5, 4x4, 3x3, 2x2. So yes, I had that one beaten inside of like 2 or 3 seconds because I knew what I was doing. I recognized the domination of the A pawn once I could clean the rooks off the board. Okay, this is another bump and score. So bump and score, we're going to check with the rook on E1. Rook goes to D1. Then we hit him with bishop to H6 check. He'll play F4. We'll play bishop takes F4 check. He'll go back, and then we'll take his rook and checkmate him. This is fairly basic. Bump. I said bump, score. All right, that was very good. We sacrificed our queen, apparently. No one asked my permission, but oh well, that's what happened. So we sacrificed our queen, apparently. And we better checkmate this guy because we're in trouble. We sacrificed our queen for a rook. And we don't really have an obvious mate. Oh man, this is bogus. What are we doing? Well, we have rook. This is going to be a toughie. I don't know, man. We have rook takes d4, which he can play queen takes d4, or we can play knight to c2 check, recovering our queen. And that would leave us 4. He's got 4 pawns, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we could, it's kind of a simplification combination. We're also attacking his rook after we take the queen. We're attacking his rook with our bishop. This looks pretty good. We don't have a checkmate, but we can definitely cash in, because after rook takes d4, I mean, he could play bishop to d2, but then bishop, we'd have this knight check and bishop takes here. I don't know. Good question. Rook d4, bishop to d2. What do we play? E3? Yeah, e3 would be awesome. So rook to d4, queen takes, knight checks, king goes to, I don't know, probably, let's just say he's got something good. I don't know, king to d2. Knight takes queen, and we're threatening his rook with my bishop. So he's got to move whatever. And then I'll have a chance to eat this pawn or play pawn takes pawn. I just don't see anything else that's any good. Knight d3 check doesn't do anything. Man, I'm doing this. All according to plan. He went the other way. It's fine. Wowzers. That's interesting. Okay. 2 ideas. Trade queens first. Probably not the right one, but you got to consider it. And then also pawn takes pawn check. I haven't mentioned it. I should mention it. My 4 elements of finding your moves are: look for checks, look for captures, look for piece contacts, which also includes threats to pieces or threats to key squares. like checkmate squares or forking squares, things of that nature. And also board situation, which is how I get stuff when I tell you like my dad's number one rule is what is he trying to do to me? Well, what is he trying to do to me here? Queen, knight takes free queen. Well, it's not free, but it's close enough. So queen takes queen wouldn't be bad, except that I think pawn takes pawn check is way better. What happens here is that this bishop guards his pawn, so let's go e takes f7 or pawn takes pawn check. He's forced. He can't play king to f8, queen takes free queen is checkmate. Therefore, pawn takes king to e7 is the only move. Once again, only move means we're winning. And now that that f-pawn is gone, I can hit him with bishop to g5 check. He's toast right there on the spot. So there you go. Pawn takes pawn wins. This is the winning move right here because we have this little jewel. And then we have queen takes queen fatality. This is your visualization cashing like nobody's business. Well, well, well. We do have a possibility. Oh yeah, we got him on a deflection. I'm going to checkmate this guy with queen to e6 check. You're like, that's not checkmate. Of course it's not. He has one move. Well, he has two moves. Queen to f7, queen takes f7. That's checkmate. But that's not the one I'm looking for. I'll take it if he gives it to me, but no good player will do that. Queen e6 check, king to f8, rook to h8 check. Queen must capture the rook because it's checkmate, or he can play queen to g8 and then rook takes his checkmate. But after queen takes rook on h8, queen to f7 is checkmate because his king is here. So I've given you all the variations. So let's run through it again. Queen e6 check. This is the move, just so you can visualize it. He goes king f8, rook h8 check. He has to capture. Queen captures. Or queen goes to g8. Either one is the same thing. I'm going to checkmate him no matter what he does. So, goodbye. This is visualization right there. And all my videos where you see me kicking butt, it's because my visualization is quite strong. This is the whoops mate. Look, he's blocked here by the bishop. When I check him with my rook, this is going to be blocked. The pawns block this. So this is checkmate right here, just on visualization. Whoops mate. So, fantastic. Now what do we have? Got to be careful. We do have bishop takes rook, but then he's got 2 versus 1 here. Like rook takes, for example. Right? So, is there something else I can do? Like maybe mess with his world, say bishop to h6. This is like, almost like I want to take this, but you see how open that f7 is. His rook is going to come in there, and my queen has no moves. So clearly bishop takes rook is not playable. Correct. I cannot take, but I can do, if I can deflect his queen or his rook from f7, I can take this and then escape. The only way I can do that is play bishop to h6. Rook takes h6, bishop takes free rook. Rook goes back to h7, bishop goes right back to e8, and you lose, okay? Now, he could play queen takes h6, same exact story. Bishop takes rook, rook h8, if that's what turns him on. Bishop to e7, bishop to e8, sorry. So if I go bishop to h6 and he doesn't, if he moves, let's say, queen to f3, maintaining the f7 attack, I can play queen to f8. I'm not really guarding, Actually, you know, I mean, I'm not guarding the bishop in the classical sense. I'm just moving this out of the way to play queen to g8 check. So, in my mind, the only move that I can play that's not compromising something is bishop to h6. It's just really bizarre when you look at it. I want to take this rook. Now, the thing is about bishop to h6, it threatens his queen, so his rook cannot run away. It doesn't like it. I'm sorry, dude. That move was awesome. Yeah, whatever, dude. All right. This bishop and this king are on the same line. Means this pawn is pinned. Pinned pieces guard nothing. What's it guarding? Knight. So I can do one of two things. I can play either rook takes rook with queen takes or bishop takes, or I can just play the outright queen takes h4. I think queen takes h4 is better. I could be wrong. Queen takes h4 threatens to play queen takes g3, because if he makes a mistake and defends with queen to e1, well, it doesn't matter. I'm not really taking. He's going to defend it. I'm not going to take that. I'm just going to take the knight, and that's it. He can't do anything. Queen takes, rook takes, king takes. Queen to f3 does nothing. f3 check, king to g8. He doesn't change this in any way. He also doesn't have the ability. Yes, look. This is why you go through this. My brute force technique of queen takes h4 double question mark is no good because queen has a free bishop. He can play rook takes rook and then queen takes free bishop. Or queen takes free bishop first. So we need to play rook takes rook. We need to deflect his queen. Now there's two responses. We play rook takes rook. If he plays queen takes, we play queen takes knight. If he makes a mistake and plays bishop takes rook, then you'll see that bishop takes g3 check is a discovered attack winning his queen. So the correct move is rook takes f1. And now queen takes free knight because of the pin, and the pin cannot be broken. Bishop takes, and then any move he makes that attacks my bishop, I will just retreat queen to f6 and defend the bishop. Okay, so whoop-de-doo. It's whoop-de-doo, man. Did he take something, that freak? My bishop got a lot of nerve, I'm telling you. We're down 2 pieces temporarily. Well, we have no checks. We do technically have the ability to play queen takes f7, threatening a checkmate. That's easily defended by rook to e8, however, and I don't like it. So, what else do we have? I think pawn takes is a nothing move. I think I don't think we do anything but lose after pawn takes. We have, he's got 5 pawns, we have 6. Whoop-de-doo. We have a pawn for a bishop. So we have technical. Oh, dude, that doesn't quite work. Son of a freaking gun. I had a great idea that doesn't work. Well, and how great of an idea could it be? Well, the idea was queen f7, rook e8, queen takes rook, king takes, rook to g8, and then skewer his queen, but he just goes bishop to f8, and my idea goes to crud. But it was a great idea. It's got to be queen to f7. It has to be the only move. He didn't have a check. Queen to f7. Threatens, well, not a mate, but it threatens to take with check and mate there. Or, to just harass him to the bone and then clean bishop and knight. So I think this is the only move. That is the terrible move. This is a bad move. That's not the move. I think he should have played like queen to c6. All right, let's go back. This is what I think is the correct defensive move. If you're going to let us take the bishop, I don't think it's a good idea to let us take the bishop. He could have played knight to d5. What a great move. Well, it fails also to rook to g8. So maybe he doesn't have a good move. But he had moves that I thought gave a better chance. So here I can't take the bishop, but I just go rook g8. Rook takes, queen takes. And then bishop, when the king goes here, I take his queen. Or if the bishop goes here, I'll take the bishop and then take his queen. That's better. At least the rook maintains defense of the queen. But I'm going to take that knight too. Could have checked me. Ah, well, whatever. That's his problem, not my problem. Oh, the freak, eh? All right. And this is one of the things I mentioned is, and this would be unblockable checkmate. Although it is semi-blockable, actually. What's the problem? Ugh, look at this nasty move here. So, we can play... We can play rook to g3. He's forced to play king to h2. Ah, grasshopper. Rook to g3. This is an idea. It's terrible. Mating on h3, but it doesn't work because he plays this. This is the defensive move. That's my visualization. I'm giving you the preview. So, rather than threaten him here, I'd love to play rook to g4 threatening to take this, but he obviously would play rook to h6. So, let's intercept this idea and play rook to h8. Now, Bobby Fischer Jr., what are you going to do? All he can do to temporarily stop checkmate is play rook to e8. I take it. He could queen and take that. I'm going to go back and take this. There's nothing he could do. That's what visualization shows me. That rook g3 is terrible, king h2. Rook g4 is terrible, rook h6. But rook to h8, there is no defense. Oh, there's rook to h6, but again, that's a freebie. We can queen. Guess what? He's going to play queen h3 after I check him. And it's unstoppable checkmate. Or another way to phrase it would be inevitable checkmate. Okay, you heard it once before. I'm a master and then some on king and pawn getting games. So, blah, blah, blah. I've got king c5, the obvious move. It's the obvious move because he just allowed this to happen. The problem is for black is that he can defend this. King to c7, preventing me from coming in here. The problem is this is called the rule of the outside or the distant pass pawn. This pawn is far enough away to, when he makes a break for the goal line, this guy as a linebacker, he's got to chase him down, and I'm going to play Pac-Man. Waka, waka, waka. I'm going to eat his pawns, play king to b7, the shepherd square, and crush him. And this is all from positional understanding and special rules of king and pawn endgames, not direct calculation. I could directly calculate it, but why would I? I know 2 plus 2 is 4 and 3 plus 3 is 6. I don't even have to think about it. I don't think about this either. King c5, king c7, e5 crushing. He's got to go after the pawn. He could go king to d7, and then at that point, goodbye Charlie. e6, king takes. He's blocked. King e5, king b6, king d6, king takes, king c6. Okay. So here, the question: king c5, king c7, e5, king d7, e6, king takes, king to e5, king here, king to d6, check, he goes there. He's blocking me in. So this is one move too soon. So maybe I want to play it this way. Maybe I want to play e5. No, I don't like that either. E6. Oh, no. Don't play e6, idiot. Just go and play king to b6 and cash. Okay, there you go. That's the problem. Yeah, e6 is not necessary, and I used my calculation powers to recognize it would fail and draw. King to b6 is the killer. He can't push his pawn. I'll just take it. If he goes over here, I'll take this. And pushing his pawn is too late, because he'd go to 4. I would just catch it. Like I said, I'm a master and then some on king and pawn endgames, and you saw me cash the victory by double checking my original idea, and it was actually incorrect. I corrected it and won the game, just like I would do in a tournament game. Now this one, oh man, I had this guy and then I realized I don't have him. Crud. Thought I was going to get him with queen to c1 check with knight f3, pawn takes, and queen checks, which loses. So that's not good. This is not looking good, dude. Yes, knight f3 check, pawn takes, the only move. We're winning. And then the shocker. Bishop to b4 check. Unleashes a discovered attack on his queen, but also bishop takes forced queen to c1 checkmate, because my pawn guards the escape square. So I sacrifice my knight to open the line to check his king, to deflect the defender of c1, which is his bishop. I don't want his queen. I want to checkmate him. All from visualization. Eat that. Eat this. Checkmate, my brothers. Okay, now we're in business. Well, you know, what does my dad say? My dad says he's threatening to play rook takes g2. What's he trying to do to me? Black wants to play this move, doesn't he? I mean, I would, so would you. Problem he's got is that when he checks me, I go king to f1, and this bishop is a Superman guarding g1. There's no more checks to be had there. The rook blockades his bishop from checking me. So I'm thinking, double the rooks. I'm threatening to checkmate this guy when he stops checking me. Check, king f1, you have no checks. Well, that's not true. Actually, he would have queen takes b5 check. That's an annoying move, to be honest with you. That's pretty annoying. I don't like that move. I'd have c4. Oh, no, he'd have queen checks here, that jerk. Oh, man, what a freak. What a freak. I'd have bishop here, but then he has rook to there. And I would come here. And if you check me, I'd have queen to there. Dude, this is nasty. I have g4, pawn takes. It just all revolves around me trying to stop his check. Let's look at this again. Dang it, dude. That's crazy. Rook 3, H3. Rook takes pawn check. King F1. Queen. Grasshopper. King to H1. This is the move. There's no checks because there's no queen to B5 check because I'm not here. So it's rook to double, check, king to the corner, there's no checks. There's rook H2 check and rook to G1 check, both of which are terrible. I would just eat those rooks and go, thanks for the candy, son. You lose. Crunch. Visualization, visualization, visualization. This is how you get to be good. That is what you guys want to do. You want to be good. So this jerk, he just forked my rook and queen. Well, guess what? I have a rook attacking. Now notice he's got no mating threats against my king. I see that. It's obvious. You guys can see this too. I have rook takes F2 as a possibility, but he'd take my queen. What if I go queen to H4? Now I could give you this rook for free, and then play queen takes F2 as a bump and score, and it's over. You lose. I've made him on H2. So I've got queen H4 threatens a checkmate with a triple attack on that square. He's got the knight blocks him from being able to play queen to H8 check. No other move is any good. Whatever. Now, can I just play rook takes F2? Because now, look, you count the attackers. 1, 2, 3 on F2. This is an X-ray attack. So this rook hits this rook first, but it is attacking here. We've got 3 attackers. He's got king and rook only. He's got 2 defenders. So we play rook takes F2. Again, there's no checks. As long as he has no checks, this works. Rook takes F2. We're now threatening to just go and crush this guy with queen E3 check. Queen H2 is mate. So rook takes here. If he takes, queen takes his bump and score again. Goodbye, Charlie. Now he sees the checkmate. So rook, I cannot play knight captures rook because of queen to A8 checkmate, because my back rank is horribly weak. I have a rook guarding B8, a queen on D8, and a rook on F8, and none of those two work together. So I can win his queen though with rook G2 check, because he cannot allow rook checks, and then he's going to have to play queen takes rook, rook takes queen, king takes, knight takes rook check. Game over. Okay, now we hit this guy. Now this is the finishing move, but let's go back. I'm going to show you. Now I didn't have to calculate, I don't have to visualize every move. That is the key. This is what you would call it's like stacking blocks. Okay, you stack a block on top of another block. Each block contains a sequence of moves unique to that block. So we really, in this case, only have to visualize one block's worth of moves, and then we get to a position where it changes and we get to open up a new block. So we're avoiding, our number one problem was to get out of this fork, which was queen H4. So that's 1, 2, and then killer move 3. Now we go to a new block when he goes rook to E3. So he solved the problem. So my sequence is correct. I got out of the problem. Both pieces are out of the knight fork. I still have a raging mating attack. And I just had to figure out that this second block was rook G2, and whether he goes H1 and I play rook H2, king G1, rook on B2 to G2 check, and trading queens. We're going to end up with a queen trade. King is going to be here, and I'm going to take his rook with check. So this is a two-stage, maybe a block, two stages of blocks. So block 1 was completed, and Rook E3 made a new block, which we went to, hitting him with Rook G2. This is the shorter version. All right. So let's just count this. Really, I only had to do I only did what? 1, 2, 3. Then the new one was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I did a 3 block and then a block of 5 moves. I only had to visualize 5 moves deep, or 5 total moves. So just wanted, it was very kind of a unique situation. I wanted you guys to look at that and see it. Just whatever. You never know what works for different people. So he took my whatever with check. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Pawn, I guess. Pawn or knight. Pawn. Okay, pawn. What if I just play, I don't know, basic stuff like queen takes d6. He's going to play knight to b5. And I can defend that with bishop takes knight. I mean, that's what I'm threatening. I'm threatening to take his knight with bishop takes knight. What do we have here? 3 minors. He's got 4 minors, 2 rooks. I got a queen against a bishop or whatever it is. Queen against a knight. So, yeah, so what? Oh, I can't play bishop takes queen because he got knight takes queen, but I've got queen to here. I'm like, so what? Looks like a so what to me. Queen to here, knight to there. Or is that knight to queen to d7, queen to b4. Queen to b4 might be useful. Yeah, I can't allow him to take my queen back, otherwise we'll be dead even again. That's no good. So queen to b8, knight to c7, it would probably be knight on e6 because I'm threatening to take that knight. Queen b4, knight e c7. So what? a6, get out of my face. It's either that or knight to b7, but on knight to d7, I don't care for that. Blocking my bishop. I need the threat of bishop takes knight to be alive. So how about queen to here? You don't have, oh, he's threatening that jerk. He's threatening bishop to a3. Do you see that trash? That freak. What a freak. What if I go bishop takes knight? Knight takes queen. Don't care for that. Queen takes knight, pawn takes, bishop takes. Or, yeah, it's good. Not bad, I guess. That freak is threatening bishop to a3. Well, I could do that, I guess. So he's threatening also to bishop a3 check me if I go queen to d7. Bishop checks, and I would just go forget you. Oh man, what a freak. Yeah, bishop checks, king f6. You could take my bishop. I'd take him. Knight takes bishop. Rook takes, bishop takes, king takes, bishop. What a pain in the butt. This is a nasty combo. I go here. He's got check. I go here. What is this? A 2600 problem, basically. Possibility of this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then where are you going is the question. King F6 is not the move. Queen to D7, queen to B8. The check, I have this. If he takes this, oh, I get him with this one. Forcola. Killer. Wow, that is not a whoops mate, but it's getting close. Well, no, that's not good. Man. I have rook, I have knight, I have rook D8 check, doesn't do anything. Knight C7 check does nothing. Well, that does nothing, but doesn't do much, let's put it that way. What do we got here? Knight G7 check. Knight G7 check. He's got king, queen takes. That doesn't help me. This looks like one of those positions where you're going to have to play something that's kind of oddball, like knight takes F8. That way you have queen. There's a move for you, actually. It is something oddball, but oddball different. Bishop to D5. Rook takes, bishop takes, rook is winning. Bishop D5, if he plays bishop takes, queen takes. But he could play C4, but I'd hit him with bishop takes C6 check, which is a nasty move. But he's still on my queen. So bishop D5 looks really strong. Oh man. Bishop D5, C4. I have bishop checks. I also have knight to C7 check, winning his queen. After he could play like king to, I don't know, E7. I could play bishop takes queen. If he takes my queen, then I play knight takes rook. This is the move to me. Bishop to D5. Everything else is worse. Well, when you do it that way, my brother, you know, I got queen here attacking this rook. I got, you know, I have, there's no rush. You got to make sure you get this right. In tournaments, take all your time. Queen takes looks like the right move. Rook takes, he's going to play C4. Knight takes is no good. Queen takes. So it looks like queen takes bishop is the move. Queen takes free rook check. That's what my father would say. I'm going to exchange ahead on that one. All right. Now, let's not be too greedy. The obvious move is G6. The obvious move could also be knight F6. Now he's going to play a nasty check. Like knight F7. Double check actually is super nasty. Because my queen is on his bishop, but this is double check. In this case, you know, well, that's assuming I block this with like G6 or G6. The idea of G6 is to play, he checks me, I can go to here king g7. I don't really feel like I want to go h5 and let him play queen g4 check, because that is actually checkmating. So knight f6 would stop that. But knight f6, knight f7 double check just looks evil. King to g6. He has queen to f5 as mating. So knight f6 loses. So knight f6 actually loses to knight check, king here, queen to f5 check. That's visualization, shows you that knight f6 loses by force. I only have one move. Okay, I technically have two moves. King to h5, but he's got queen to g4. He's going to push me right back into the double check. I'm toast. g6 is the obvious move to me, and turns out it's the best move. There you go. Well, Bobby Fischer, queen takes bishop. You're not double checking me. That's the only move. Now I have the safety move, king to g7. Yeah, you're checking me. Who cares? Guess what? I check you first and block this on f6 or f8 or whatever. Winning. This is visualization demonstrated to you for just what kind of power it offers. I made two mistakes apparently. We'll go back and look and see what those are. I don't know what those are, but I got 49 and I'm on the verge of 50. And I'm doing this to show you visualization, because this is how you win games. Bishop takes queen. I mean, seems obvious, doesn't it? Bishop takes queen. I mean, and that's everything else loses. Forget you. So now what is he threatening to do? Well, I can't move my king. He'll take my bishop. I'd love to be able to get my pawns connected. I cannot push the pawns. No good. So the thing that we're doing, our bishop is going to need to hold this pawn. So I'm thinking bishop g5 is the way to go, with the idea of bishop to f6, and if unnecessary, bishop will exchange for the pawn, and king and 3 pawns against this rook. Remember this rule, that 2 pawns on the 6th rank connected against a rook are an easy win. Now the king would be over here somewhere out of position. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm banking on playing bishop g5 followed by bishop f6. Now he can play king to e6, and there's no way I can win this. The thing about bishop to g5 is that I'm threatening. Wow, I'm threatening to play this d7. So I can play d7, but he's got king e7 attacking my pawn. Now technically I would have e6, because the king could not take this. The king is the only piece. Okay, I'm threatening d7, king e7, e6, threatening bishop g5 with check and queening. He cannot play king takes e6. This is an old rule. When you have the 2 connected passers, the king cannot take the backwards one because the forward one will queen. So you have to move his rook, and that's when I hit him with the check. So maybe it is d7. If I go to d7, he could check me, but I'm going to go to, if he checks me on b4, I'm going to go king c5, messing with his rook. He can't take the e pawn because I just literally queen. Take the bishop, you can have it. I don't care. I think that normally I don't want to play d7. But, man, it looks like he's giving it to me. d7, the only move that I'm threatening now is queening. He has to go either rook to b1, g1, sorry, rook to g1 to stop the queen, or king to e7. In which case I play e6. King e7, e6. If he goes rook to g1, I play bishop to g5, again threatening to queen. or defend. No, I'm threatening a queen. Wow, that's nasty. D7? Is that the right move? What is this? A 20? It'll be 27, about 50 rated problem. So D7 looks like a winner because Rook G1, Bishop to G5 threatens the queen. He can't even stop me with his king. So really, I think Rook G1 is bad. D7, Rook G1, Bishop G5, and I'm going to cash. Because he doesn't have a move. If he moves King E6, Queen, Rook takes, Bishop takes. He cannot play, when the pawn's on D7, E8 is off limits for his king. So really, I think King E7 is the move, but E6 is the crusher. E6, now you lose, buddy. This is the squasher right here. There's a 50. It's all visualization, man. This is what I wanted to tell you guys. This is all visualization. This is the power of visualization. Right there, that's, you know, on the edge of your fingertips. Okay, we have a couple of moves. Rook takes F6. The bishop can't take the rook or the knight because it's pinned to the queen. Nah, it's not that, I mean, it's not super great. It's good. We have also knight to D5. So, remember to like this video. This is a good video, man, I'm telling you. I'm showing you how to do this business. What if we go Rook? Nah, yeah, it's pretty good. Thinking Rook takes F6. He's going to do something. I don't know, say C5. No, Rook. Let's say Rook A to D8 guarding his queen. So now he can threaten to take my rook. So I could do Queen to H6, threatening bishop takes my rook, queen takes F6 check. Followed, well, actually, no, instead of queen now, I could go, knight to D5. That's because that's the thing that I want to do. White wants to play knight to D5 because that F6 pawn is loose, and I'd really like to be able to play queen H6 combined with knight to D5, and then rook takes F6 or knight takes F6, depending. Rook takes F6. He could play, like I said, rook A D8, knight D5. Oh no, I couldn't do that. Couldn't do, well, no, I could not do that. I have to go queen to H6 or rook to H6. I don't think that's the right move. Or I could play queen to H6 right now. Rook takes F6, rook A D8, queen H6, bishop takes rook, queen takes bishop on F6 check, king to G8. And actually, rook A D8 is terrible. The move he should play, which is really bizarre, is queen to D8. Because then rook takes F6, queen to D8. I have to move the rook. The problem he's going to have if he plays rook A D8 is that when my rook is on there, my queen ends up on F6 checking. He doesn't have, and I'm going to play knight to D5. I'll be able to move my queen and threaten knight to F6 mating. So, rook takes F6. Queen to D8. Well, I also have rook to F5, threatening rook to D5. Rook to f5. He could play again rook a d8, or just play c6. So rook f5 doesn't do anything, not threatening anything of value. Knight d5, bishop takes b2, queen. Well, actually, rook f5 is pretty good. Rook f5, I'm threatening, one of the things I'm threatening is rook f5. The rook f5 move is a killer move because it stops these pawns, it stops defense of h7. His h7 is terminally weak. He has only one way to defend it. 1, 2. Is play rook g8 and rook g7. So I have rook f5. He could play, well, c6, whatever, that's fine. And then I can play queen to h6. And he has to play rook to g8, so that if I play rook to h5, he plays rook to g7. But I get, I'd like to play knight to d5, though. See, I can't. He's got c6. Rook f5. He's got c6, which I don't like. Oh, I guess that's actually... Whoa, dude, it's nasty. That is nasty. No, rook to here. He's got c6. I don't know, man. That's rook to h5 would be strong. Rook to g8 forced. Again, queen to h6. And then I have rook ad1 if I want to do that. I don't know, man. This is really tough. This is a clear win for white. I can see that this is clearly winning. It's just the maze is getting through the maze. Do I get through the maze or not? But we're winning because h7 is horribly weak. But I just have to get there with the correct idea. The advantage of knight d5 is that it automatically threatens to take his bishop. He's got bishop takes b2. Rook f5 threatens rook d5 and rook h5. It also threatens rook on a to d1. Actually, I can play that right now, but he can play c5. So this makes him waste a move. Rook f5 threatens here. c6 is a wasted move. Because if I played rook ad1 now, he'd just go c5, sidestep me, and then move his bishop to e5, and he's fine. But he can't do that if I go rook f5 first, because I'm threatening the queen and bishop. So he must address this threat. This is the move I'm telling you. Well, it says not. Let's find out why. Do that rook f5, I'm telling you, is a great move. Really? Okay. Yeah. I like mine better than this. Knight takes bishop. Knight f5. This is winning. There must be something that I missed. There's something I missed on rook f5. I don't know what it is. I'm telling you, this is just winning. Let's see what the computer says. I said, rook a d8. What does that do? I didn't even see if it actually did anything. Crud, I didn't go there, dummy. Bishop takes knight. Okay. But really, that's not the threat I was going after. I'm going after this threat. How do you defend? Rook g8 is the forced move, right? Bishop takes c3 doesn't do anything. Oh, yes, it does. It threatens a checkmate. He got me. All right, my rook to f5 was a genius idea, but it fails to his checkmate threat. Okay, they got me. That was fair. But I'm not 2750, so what are you going to do? You didn't like my move. Because of that, I would go queen to e8. That's hideous. Queen to e8 is hideous. Bishop to h6. That's the right move. I was right, but I did it in the wrong sequence. My mistake. That was my mistake. My bishop to h6 move is the killer move, but in the correct order, and my order was wrong. Okay, so my fault. I'm telling you, queen takes rook is winning. Well, knight takes free rook, dude. I mean, come on. That is better. No, hey, rule number one: nobody's perfect. I saw that move, but I didn't see that rook to d8 was really unstoppable checkmate destruction. That's my fault. So they got me legit on that. But, what are you going to do? There's nothing wrong ever scoring 50. The point is, I wanted to show you guys the power of visualization and why I work on visualization every day. You see that it's devastating. And that's what you saw, this 50 with really very low effort, because my visualization of the moves was so good that 50 out of 53 times I was correct. Now, that's the kind of percentage, when you roll this percentage, it's like 94, 95%, whatever it is. You're like, oh man, that's awesome. Now you know why I won multiple chess tournaments. Not one, and not garbage players. That's why I've beaten masters to win money in tournaments. It's that simple. Visualization. You watched it happen. So, like the video. Tell your friends. Because when your friends watch my videos, they get stronger. And when you get stronger friends and you play chess with your stronger friends, you get stronger. Everyone wins. So hopefully you enjoyed it. It was fantastic. I'll see you guys later.